So
Yeah. Hi, Connie. Hi, Maggie.
Hi.
hi.
How are you doing?
Good. How are you?
Pretty
Good.
good. We have Sarah as well. Hey, Sarah.
Hello. Hi.
I think we'll probably wait a few minutes for more people to have a chance to log in before we get started.
Okay. Sounds good.
Including our other co-presenter.
Including Casey, who we need for this.
She's on calls until back-to-back calls all morning, so
Yeah.
probably like taking a moment. I always love seeing people's like work from home setups. That's been a treat of this quarantine time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think Aiden, for me, the first month I was like outside at my kitchen table, and I think this is the best angle for me. So I continue to do mine from here.
Yeah, my boss was like, where are all of your plants and everything? Like, why are you up just against the wall? And I'm like, you know what? This is what's working for me 3 months in. So
Oop, I need to Slack Casey the Zoom link real quickly.
Oh, yep. Preview.
There she is. Hi, Case.
Hello, Casey.
Hi.
I definitely think that this will be a little bit of a smaller group, but I'll wait just another minute or two. I'll get started at 12:05, just because I know there were a few other names that were registered who I don't see yet. Okay, well, I do want to be mindful of everyone's time, so we can go ahead and get started, and hopefully we'll have a few more folks join in the next few minutes. But hello, everyone, and thank you for joining AMA's last social media SIG of the season. I wish we could all be in person, but I think Zoom is pretty much the new normal for us anyway, so it's still good to be able to at least see everyone's faces. And before we get started with our deck, I did want to encourage you to drop your name and email address as well as the company you work for in our comments. Just at any point during the SIG. I know typically with these types of events, it's a good chance to network and exchange information and business cards. So it's our way to share a digitized version of your business card. That way we can all continue to stay connected afterwards. And what I'll do is I'll pull everyone's information into a contact sheet, and then I can email it out to the group later this afternoon. And then if you wanted to have the deck as well, I can include that too in the email. You want to go to the next slide? Okay. I see some familiar faces here, some other AMA board members. Hi, Christina. But I did want to go ahead and go around the Zoom and have us all introduce ourselves before we get started. I would say just go ahead and share your name and then maybe 1 to 2 sentences about yourself. It could be, where you work. We have a couple of thought starters as well. We'd love to learn before we kick things off how you're using social media, either for your clients, personally, for the company you work for. Are you using ads now? And then are you familiar with Facebook Business Manager, and are you using that? And if so, at what capacity are you using it on a daily or weekly basis? I guess since I can kick things off and I can start. My name is Amanda Colocho. I work at the Hodges Partnership, and we are a communications agency based here in Richmond. Our office is located at the bottom, but like many of you, our offices right now are remote. I'm also a board member of AMA, and at one point was managing AMA's social media platforms for a couple years. And then at Hodges, I also manage social media platforms for quite a few of our clients. Daily, I'm responsible for creating content, monitoring those channels, reporting metrics every month. And then I also do some advertising for those social channels on the back end using Facebook Manager. Aiden?
Yeah, thanks, Amanda. Hey, everybody, I'm Aiden Guilfoyle. I work with Amanda and Casey at the Hodges Partnership. So, agency life, we all kind of have to do a little bit of everything, but we have our favorites, and you've kind of got the social squad on the line today. But I do a lot of work with social media, with content writing, with social strategy and analytics. It's weird to say I have a beat that I work on, but I was thinking about all the social stuff I've done, and I've done a lot of governmental utility work, which is just a weird niche. But one of the nation's leading wastewater utilities is right in Alexandria, Virginia. And so that's kind of a weird client that it's been interesting to make, how do you make your customers follow their wastewater utility on social media? How do we make wastewater fun? So from that to more consumer brands, some local restaurant groups, to VDOT and Drive Smart Virginia, kind of have a wide range. And I'm super excited to kind of talk through some of this stuff today, and then also to learn from you all as well.
Yeah, and I'll piggyback off Aiden. We'll finish the Hodges intros. My name is Casey Prentice, and pretty much everything Aiden said as far as what she does at the agency is also what I do as well. A lot of social, a lot of content work, where she has the beat of utilities, I have the beat of higher education, and a lot of the work that I do right now is for Virginia's community college system. And we do projects for their academic side as well as their workforce training side. So we've done a lot of different campaigns for not only the traditional audience of college students, but adults who are looking to go back. And my biggest project right now is I've done a localization, what I'm calling a localization campaign, where I'm running 23 different ad sets for each of the 23 community colleges. So I don't think I expected to be running a campaign where I'm now up to 300 different ad variations that I've had to work through because of just the nuances of targeting so detailedly. But so that's been my recent Facebook Manager project. So I don't know who wants to take it off next in the group for introductions.
I can go ahead. Hi, everyone. I'm Sarah Leffler. I'm the portfolio marketing specialist at the Linden Row Inn, which is a historic boutique hotel in downtown Richmond. We also have a sister property in Blowing Rock, North Carolina, that I also am the portfolio marketing strategist for. And I pretty much manage all of the social media for both properties, including content, analytics, advertising. We do use Facebook Business Manager on the regular. I check it every single day. And as you know, with the hospitality industry amidst all these challenging times, it's been a shift in gear in how we're advertising on social media. We had to, bring down our budget a little bit more, but then we were trying to look ways to retarget our audience to reach more people with that smaller budget. So just amidst all these crazy things that are happening right now, I would like to learn a little bit more about how I can vamp up our advertising, but keeping that budget that we need to stay at, because right now we're not making any revenue as we're temporarily closed until July 1st, I'm hoping. So.
I'll go next. My name is Caitlin Fralin, and I am a senior account manager with Red Orange Studio. We are a small full-service creative agency in downtown Richmond, working from home, of course. I'm also the new director of sponsorships with AMA Richmond, so very excited to get on board with this awesome chapter. I'm excited to attend this SIG. I have found a lot of value in these SIGs just with getting to have candid conversations with peers, and it's been kind of an interesting way to network too in this virtual world that we're all living in. And I'm also, from a social media standpoint, I handle some of the company's social media and marketing, and I'm realizing that if you don't keep up with it, you'll fall behind. And so I'm doing everything that I can to just know what technologies are out there, how to best utilize the current platforms that we're on, and just to continually learn so that I can stay competitive, not just for my company, but for myself professionally.
I'll go next. I'm Connie Dye. I'm a senior level marketing and brand strategist. I'm currently doing some freelance work in between jobs. I was most recently at CarMax in their employer brand area. May go back there, may not, remains to be seen. My two coworkers are both furry, and I have an Australian Shepherd and a little mutt that sit by my feet all day while I look for a job. So that's always fun. But I do use Facebook Business Manager for some of my freelance clients. And the reason for my attending today is AMA related. I am trying to get Facebook Business Manager set up for AMA because it's currently being used by admins with their personal accounts, and I'd like to bring it all in so it stays consolidated and consistent as the board changes year over year. So I've been struggling a little bit with getting it transferred over, so I'm hoping to pick up some tips from this SID today.
Christina, Maggie.
Hey, I'm Christina Dick. I do PR, social media marketing with Tiramisu for Breakfast agency. We mostly do, I would say, like influencer relations and like fun stuff like that, but very interested in learning more always about Facebook ads.
And I'm her summer intern. I'm currently a senior, about to be a senior at East Carolina University. And I'm looking for PR and marketing experience this summer. And so I'm interning for Tiramisu for Breakfast. It's been going great so far.
I'm also a former pirate, Maggie. So.
Oh, yay. That's awesome.
Awesome. I know we have a couple of other AMA members on here helping with logistics on the back end. So has everybody had a chance to go, or is there anyone we're missing?
I can talk. I don't have my video screen on, and I'm protecting you guys. You should be very thankful. My hair's not even brushed today. But anyway, I'm Leslie McCary, and I'm an AMA member. I work for TechArc. We are a website, mobile app, and software company. We're actually based out of Hampton Roads, but now have a presence in Richmond. And I am not actively doing social media for my organization, but I do have a strategy project for one of our clients. And in that, I'm going to need to make recommendations for social media.
Great. Nice to meet everyone. And I will go ahead and kick things off over to Aiden to get started. Aiden and Casey are definitely our in-house gurus when it comes to social media advertising. So they'll be leading a lot of the conversations today.
Great. Thanks, Amanda. And I'll just say too, we've got some slides to go through. Some will probably be review, some hopefully not, but we encourage you to just chime in, please. Like, I know this is over Zoom and it's always like a little bit awkward. So do not be afraid to interrupt, and feel free again also to use the chat if you have any questions or things that come up. We'll have some time at the end to chat through that. But yeah, so here's our agenda for the day, and or for the hour, which is now 45 minutes. And first, just a quick little vocab refresher. A lot of this is not going to be news to you, but just kind of as we go through the deck, these words might come up. I still feel like I'm like, wait, what is reach and what is impressions? So it's always kind of good to keep these things in mind. And then business manager is the last one on this list, and that's, you know, the tool that Facebook uses for their ad management. And, you know, Twitter has a similar one, LinkedIn has a similar one. So for the purpose of this conversation, we're going to be pulling examples from Facebook, but just know that, you know, it can easily translate to the other platforms. So to start with that first bucket in our agenda, rethinking your ad budget. And this is, you know, there are definitely times when traditional advertising makes sense. You know, think about a brand like Kroger. Everyone driving on the road, driving down 64, is at an age where they can walk into a grocery store and purchase groceries. But, you know, when you think about, you know, smaller brands that have a little bit more of a niche audience that need to get a little bit more targeted, you don't really need all of those eyeballs on 64. You know, with those billboards, you're paying for eyeballs, really. And you don't know if those eyeballs are old eyeballs, young eyeballs. You know, you don't have any way to track that back. You don't have any way to kind of connect the dots between the eyeball that saw your ad and the conversion, the purchase behavior, the click. It's hard to connect those dots. So if you're a brand that has a smaller budget or kind of a niche audience, or you're just being asked like, hey, is this working for us? That's kind of where we pivot and say social is a really good option, or at least an option to be like a place to start. But there's a lot of content out there, and we like to share this graphic. It's put together by Domo, and they come out with a new one each year. And so this is the one from 2019. And you can imagine that in 2020, like some of you mentioned in your kind of intros, this is probably even more crazy just with the political climate, with coronavirus, with it being an election year. You know, the pros of this are that there's a lot of places you can reach your consumers. You've got a lot of options, but the cons are, you know, so do other people. It's a lot of content that's out there. I mean, I love to see that #love is posted over 20,000 times a minute, which is great. Love that. But if you're a brand that is posting about love, how do you break through? How do you kind of crack that and reach the people you want to reach with your message so that you can change their behaviors? And that's kind of where we bring in the paid piece and that smart targeting so that you can kind of break through all this content that's barraging your consumers every day. So what is boosting? This is not new information, and Can I get some head nods if this is familiar to people? So boosting, really what's kind of separating that from your organic posts is that it's some paid money behind the posts, but they also, all the boosted posts live on your page. You can't really get into testing things, testing what images work best, what copy work best. With boosted posts, it's kind of the baseline way to amplify your message that's tied to your organic feeds. So we're kind of the purpose of this conversation today is to get into a little bit about tailoring your targeting and how you can use the tools, these sophisticated targeting tools that are Facebook Business Manager, to get a little bit smarter about reaching your audience and kind of breaking through all that content to, reach your consumer and to ultimately, connect them to whatever you're trying to do, whether that's clicks, whether that's awareness, whether that's conversions, whether that's purchases. How can we use these tools to get a little bit smarter about reaching our audiences? So Casey's going to now kind of talk us through some of those different capabilities and some of those different audience targeting that you can use in Facebook Business Manager. So I'll let her kind of kick this part off. And I'm still driving, so just Casey, if you are like, go back, tell me.
Sure, will do. So we're going to talk about 3 different audiences in this little section, and we're going to start with the standard audience. So the standard audience is defined by the social media platforms. This is going to be audiences that are built on demographic data. So this is geography, lifestyle, life stage, purchase-based demographics. And this is all information that's coming from an individual's profile. So it's not only the information a person used to build out their profile. So they selected, a gender, their zip code, they added their college or their employer. So all of that information. But this also takes into account the kinds of pages this person's following, the kind of content they're posting, the kind of content they're interacting with, and Facebook's algorithm and Twitter and Instagram for that matter, they're able to sort of assign attributes to a person to help advertisers get their product or service in front of the right audience. So an example I like to show here is, or at least tell here in this case, I signed up for a Pandora account when I was at East Carolina. I used my ECU email address. I used my 27858 zip code. And to this day, I was still getting ads for the Greenville Gold's Gym or Planet Fitness or whatever it was, because Pandora was serving me an ad based on this standard audience targeting because of that zip code I put in 10 years ago. So standard audiences is good if you have broad demographic targeting that you'd like to use, but it's also kind of have to use it with a grain of salt that you're kind of putting information in here that could be old or outdated, or you're also kind of hoping that the assumptions that the platforms are making about people when it comes to some of the more learned behaviors are accurate. The next level of audience targeting gets to be a little bit more sophisticated and a little bit more of a warm lead or a warm contact. So this is what's called custom audiences. And this is where ads are served to people who already have engaged with and are familiar with your brand or your organization. So a lot of times what the social platforms will let you do is upload a mailing list or upload any sort of Excel file. So if you have a list of people who, for the Linden Row, for Sarah, if you have a list of people who booked a room in 2019, you could take that information and upload it and build a custom audience in Facebook. And so that's one example. Another example is something that gets built from what's called a tracking pixel. So this is a little snippet of code that Facebook and Twitter will generate for you, LinkedIn as well, that you put onto your site that no one sees because it's just in, you know, the code of the website. And it monitors your website traffic. So you can then build custom audiences based on a particular page on your website. So maybe someone engaged with, you know, if you have a particular vertical, or if they looked at a particular blog post, you can target just those people. Another example is a custom audience that I've built before is people who've come to your website but did not fill out a contact form. So this is someone who maybe went to your site, was exploring, but decided they weren't quite ready to make a conversion action, like filling out a form. So then you can tailor your ads to that audience for people who are in that point of sort of their decision-making process. And then the third audience that Facebook in particular and the other platforms have started to really lean into this as well, something called lookalikes. So these are people who are going to have the same attributes of people who have interacted with your page and your ads in the past, but you may not necessarily have a connection with, but they really look similar to the audience that you already have. So it's going to find people, the platforms are going to find people who have the same demographic attributes, have the same purchasing attributes, who maybe have trafficked similar websites, and will pull together an audience of potential new prospects for you to reach. So with that, we're going to go back to the notion of boosting, which Aiden explained a few slides ago, and talk about just sort of what basic baseline boosting looks like and how that can be done a little more strategically. I referenced at the beginning of the call, I do a lot of work with higher education, and Fast Forward is a program at the community colleges. So the next couple examples are going to lean into that. But this is a post that we published. This was a blog post talking about their skilled trades training. So if you click on Boost Post, you'll get a little wizard that pops up that allows you, can you go to the next slide, Aiden? Sorry. That explains sort of like the how-to of setting up a boosted promoted post. So you can decide if you want to get engagement or traffic. You can change the CTA, and then you can set up some of that standard audience targeting. So that screen on the right-hand side, you can pick gender, you can pick age, you can pick location, and then you can add some sort of simple demographic behavior targeting. But that's pretty much all you can do with a basic boost. It's taking an existing post that you've already published organically, and you're really stuck with those standard audience targeting. But if you want to be more strategic about it, that's when you would leverage the tools that are available to you through something like Business Manager. So if you were to boost a post from your organic feed, like in the previous example, if you've interacted with and you've built out a presence on Business Manager, then you would get this radio button that's highlighted and expanded on the left, which says your custom audiences. So you can see with Fast Forward, we've done a lot of different things to build a variety of different audiences that we've used for a variety of different reasons. So some of the video or some of the audiences here were people who have viewed a particular video that we published organically, and then we were able to capture people who watched this video, and then we were able to remarket to them. So these were people who we knew watched a certain number of seconds of a video that was about affordability or about just workforce training overall. And then there's some audiences in here that have to do with people who actually filled out a contact form, people who just visited the website, and then people who visited the website but didn't convert. So we've used a variety of audiences over time for various ad campaigns. And then we just wanted to give a quick overview. It sounded like most of you have used Business Manager in the past.
But why Business Manager is such an important tool is that it allows you to fully customize and monitor a holistic ad strategy. So you're not just a la carte hitting boost, targeting a standard audience and reach, or, you know, if you've done some custom work, just reaching that person. You can really sort of map things out and see the big picture view and drill down to see how individual targeting or individual creative is performing and what's converting. So I have loved this graphic that Aiden put together because I think this way. I kind of think in the hierarchy, and sometimes it can get confusing working in Facebook Manager. I want to throw my computer out at least once a week because of Facebook Manager, but it's organized by campaign. And then you can drill down to ad sets, and then you can drill down to ads. And this is what Aiden was referencing earlier, where you can really start testing things. So let's say, for example, I'm going to use CarMax as an example since Connie was with CarMax at one point. So let's say a campaign was back to school college campaign where you wanted to target parents of college students who might need a better vehicle to travel to and fro from college when they go back. So an ad set there could be targeting parents, specifically targeting parents of college-age students just in Virginia. So maybe that's your targeting. And then at the ad level, you could keep the same message of maybe sending your kids safely to school. And then you change the image. And then that way you can test which image works better for that particular targeting, and you can make more informed decisions moving forward. So this is a great way to cost effectively test things. You can't just put a billboard up and decide 2 weeks later that you don't like an image. Where here you can put an ad out, and if it's really expensive to run, or if people aren't clicking on it, you can immediately shut it off and put something in its place. So I think this is a nice stopping point in between sort of sections. Does anyone have any glaring questions at this point about basic boosting or audiences, or just sort of the overall setup of Business Manager?
I have a question about what you were just saying about setting up the ads and testing them. Is there a certain amount of time that's a best practice to run an ad before you decide it's not working?
That's a great question. So Facebook in particular has a learning phase, and I've run some ads recently where I'll put something in and it doesn't have enough information to move an ad out of the learning phase. So there's a built-in period of time that Facebook is like, okay, here's the targeting you're telling me, here's the messages you've given me, but I'm not getting enough clicks or impressions to make a judgment on it. I like to give things at least, 3-4 days, sometimes a week, just to see how it goes, before I decide to shut things off or reallocate money somewhere else. Aiden, you have some good experience here too. Do you have any?
Yeah, and I would say too, it kind of depends on the length of your campaign that you're running. Sometimes we'll have campaigns set up that are meant to kind of be a quick spend, where we have set up a campaign that's only going to run for 3 days, just because it gives us that spike in traffic that we need, and spends quickly and effectively. So with that, if your campaign is set for 3 days, we are kind of tuning in and monitoring as soon as it kind of gets out into the learning phase to see, like, what are those front runners that are performing well, and what are the ones that aren't really off like we thought we would, and would turn them off. So it depends a little bit on campaign length. And then also, Facebook is a little finicky, to what Casey was saying with the learning phase of just, sometimes it takes a little bit longer. And sometimes things get approved and seem to be off to the races quickly after you hit publish. So that's kind of why we like to jump in and just get a feel for, are we starting to get some impressions, or does it still look like it's kind of building up? So there's no like hard and fast answer to it. But to Casey's point, I think like I'd usually like for kind of a month-long campaign where we're like putting in new creative each week, I'd let it go for a couple days, check in and see where we are. And then of course, like as we put in new creative for the campaign, check and see how things have been doing over the week, and continue to make adjustments.
Thank you.
Yeah. And I'll also add just to the timeline, we've noticed things taking slower because of the pandemic. I think they even have that sort of note in Facebook Manager that if an ad gets automatically rejected by, you know, their artificial intelligence that vets ads, then it has to go through a manual process, which takes a little longer. And I also ran into this where around the election that we had last November. So it wasn't even a presidential election, but obviously a really big one in Virginia. We had it was a nonpartisan client, but was politically motivated. And we had some manual reviews to go through. And I think just because of the amount of advertising that was happening around elections, they also had some delays in getting things approved. So there's other things in play too.
Any other questions or comments before we move forward? Going once, going twice. Okay. So Casey did a really good job of kind of speaking to some of those benefits of Business Manager kind of on the broad level. And then just to talk a little bit further kind of about the execution and those benefits that we see. To echo Casey, it totally is great to kind of have that broad view of your year when you're thinking about using Business Manager on a campaign level instead of those kind of one-off boosted posts that are tied to your current content strategy and your current editorial calendar that you're publishing and planning for weekly or monthly. Your campaigns might be different. They might be seasonal. You might not want to be hitting your message so hard on your actual page. And that's a great way to use Business Manager. So those messages, like if it's, you know, signing up for classes, you're still putting out that message 24/7, but you're not spamming people with that content on your page. And then again, just to see performance-wise what's working, doing that A/B testing. We're big. I love an A/B test. Let me tell you, I'll test the copy, I'll test the photo, we'll test the audience, we'll test different types of photos. Are they photos with people? Are they photos with landscapes? Do food photos work better? Do people want us to ask questions? Do they want us to be funny? Do they want us to be serious? So with Business Manager, we're able to kind of make those tiny little changes and continually see either what's resonating more with our audience, what's performing better and driving those conversions, and then also what's driving down the cost of our ads. You know, we might have one ad that are both sharing the same information that costs a lot more. And when it costs more, you're going to get less clicks for your money. So if you've got something that's performing really well and is really cheap when it comes to cost per click, you know, you want to learn from that and then use content that mirrors what's working well in that one ad. So I can talk about testing for a long time. I won't. And then repurposing successful organic content. So, you know, with your organic audience, you know, you say you're speaking to 2,000 people that follow your page, and you've got a post that you put up that's part of your calendar. And because organic reach is basically dead, I was laughing to myself in one of our last slides, we had a screen grab, and I think the post reached like 38 people without any budget behind, which, like, great. I'm glad we're all spending this time, you know, coming up with our great content to reach 38 people. So this is why we need to add some of that budget. But say you do have a post that you publish organically to your Facebook page, your Twitter page, and it does really, really well, throw that ad throw some money behind that ad, because, you know, with organic reach kind of being dead, if it's going to work well organically, it'll probably work even better with some money behind it, and it'll probably be really cheap and do really well for you. So we kind of, you know, we work together. What works really well paid, and then kind of learn from that and put that into your organic content. But then what's working really well organically, and, you know, have that feed your paid strategy as well. And then setting rules. So while we do, especially like being nerdy about social ads and loving to live in that world, I do check on my ads all the time. But I know a lot of marketers are strapped for time, and they've got 5,000 things that fall under their bucket of responsibilities, and you might not have the time to check in every day and see what's working, turn things off, adjust. So Facebook Business Manager allows you to kind of come up with some rules to automate what you're doing. I think, to give you an example of some of that, we've had ads that if it gets a little bit too expensive, we say, you know, if it gets above this cost per click, go ahead and turn it off. If our readers and our viewers are seeing this this many times, go ahead and turn it off. And so it kind of takes a little bit of that needing to monitor out of it. So, you know, if you just want to check in bi-weekly or every month, you're able to do that if you can kind of set some of those parameters, and Facebook will just take it and run with it. And then I think I've probably made this point about just evaluating, refining, and reporting. It's with Facebook Business Manager, and when you kind of can look so nitty-gritty into what's working, it's so easy to kind of be continually changing and making those little tweaks. So again, that you either convert more, drive the cost down more, and then they make it easy for you to kind of report back and say, oh yeah, we wanted to promote our course catalog to students. We did that. We had a digital download. This many people clicked it. It's just easy to connect those dots when it comes to social. And it's, you know, a good proof point for whoever you're answering to be able to report back directly from, you know, your awareness person to buying behavior, which just takes us right perfectly into the buyer's journey, which I'm sure everyone has seen some version of this, whether it's a little arrow graphic, whether it's a funnel. There's some way you've seen this buyer's journey where we're talking about getting your prospects from not knowing you at all, never hearing from you, being completely unfamiliar with your brand, kind of at the awareness stage, to just like introduce yourself, hi, just like we did on the call at the beginning, to consideration, where they're interested in something you have to offer, but they might be interested in other people. And they're kind of, you know, doing their research, maybe downloading, maybe reading a little bit more on your website, to kind of have that informed decision. And especially nowadays, I feel like buyers are doing their research. They're chatting with friends, you know, they're downloading they're reading all the Yelp reviews. So this consideration stage is important to then bring them along to the decision stage where they actually are taking some kind of action with your brand, whether that's a download, whether that's actually a purchase, a checkout. So, you know, when we think about our content strategy, this is how we like to think about the ads that we put out. Are they awareness level ads? Are they consideration level ads? Or are they decision level ads? And that informs, one, how we create it on the back end, and then also the copy, the content that goes with our ads. So you'll see that here, which, you know, Facebook, they know what they're doing. You'll see that so when you create a campaign, this is in Facebook Manager, this is kind of the pop-up you'll see, and you'll notice that it is also completely oriented to the buyer's journey. So we kind of think about what is the message? What is our end goal for this campaign, for these ads? Is it an awareness level ad, consideration, or conversion? And that kind of affects how we approach the content. And this is a screen grab from Twitter's campaign, and it's not as intuitive, but you'll still see kind of some of that similar language. Up on the top right, you've got awareness, which is that first broad level bucket. And then you've got kind of engagement, app installs, that's more consideration, and then all the way to like conversions, that website clicks or conversions. So, you know, it's great. The platforms kind of orient themselves to help better serve your ad. And then, you know, from the content level, it helps us inform the language we're going to use when we put our campaigns together. So this, we've been there. How about you? We're all marketers. We think like marketers. We're like, hey, like, how can we get people to click? But we're also consumers. And I will say that I'm probably the biggest sucker for like getting sold. And I know I'm being sold to because I do this. This is my work. But I will tell you that top left ad for Zaxby's. I saw an ad for Zaxby's this week. You know where I went for dinner one night this week? Zaxby's. Do I normally eat chicken, like fried chicken, fast food on a Tuesday? No. But I was playing a game and I kept getting Zaxby's ads, and there I was. So I would love to not feel like I'm the only sucker in the room. I signed up for those trendy razors. They're pastel. They send them in the mail. I don't drink coffee. Casey and Amanda will both speak to that. Like, I literally don't drink coffee, and I made the TikTok whipped coffee because I was like, I just want to try it. I don't drink coffee. I made it. So I would love to know that I'm not the only one. Don't be bashful. We've all been there. Have you been sold from social? Even if it's not a buying behavior, even if you just did some research, I would love to hear about it, so that I don't feel like I'm alone. Anyone?
Yes. Just signed up for a wine subscription service for the pandemic. It's like they know I needed more wine in all of this, so.
I got suckered into buying a product on Instagram. It's called the Hair Feel Stick, and it's for like your little wispies when you put your hair up in a ponytail. And I had never heard of it other than on Instagram, and it's like an Instagram only product. But yes, they got me, and I ended up buying it. So
please report back.
Yes, it's great.
I know exactly what you're talking about, and I'm like, do I need it? Excellent. Well, our next slides just show kind of some of those examples. So even if you haven't been sold, let me show you what it feels like to be sold. Ritz crackers, these are some awareness ads. This is Ritz just wanting to make you think about Ritz. You know, they're not trying to say, click this, get a sleeve of Ritz to your doorstep. This is just being like, hey, it's Thanksgiving time. Ritz are looking pretty good. Also with the Williamsburg, it's selling, you know, the more the merrier when shopping Kate Spade New York. It's nothing to, it's just sprinkling that thought of like, could I use some things from Kate Spade? Like, probably not, but the idea is there. So it's interesting to see. You also don't, you know, learn more. It's a soft call to action. It's not saying buy now. You don't even really see a call to action on the Ritz ads. So this is, you know, again, when they're thinking about how they're approaching the ads, it's that awareness level. And then on the consideration level, this is, we're getting a little bit more familiar with these brands. Walmart is chatting about how they are investing and how they support the veteran population. Now, are they selling a product? Would I be clicking to make a purchase at Walmart? No, but if I read a little bit more about their company, if I read that report about what they're doing to help the veteran population, I might, you know, have a little bit more brand loyalty the next time I go to make a purchase at some place like your Walmart, like your Target. Same thing with Qualtrics. They've got a download where you're not making that final supporting their business in their end goal of signing up for their survey services, but they've got a little free template that you might use and say, hey, this was really, really helpful. I wonder, Qualtrics would probably be helpful even more if I paid for their services. And then lastly, decision ads. We've all seen those HelloFresh ads. And this is, you know, there, if you look at the call to action, it's get offer, enjoy 8 free meals. So this is when you're actually exchanging some information. You're giving them your contact information. In the copy also, they're saying this offer ends at midnight, you know, so these are really that decision level ads, and the way that the call to actions are written and also the way that the copy is written speaks to that kind of decision behavior. With the AHA one, you know, boss wants your product, panic, sign up for AHA, free trial, be happy. You know, it's again that decision language. So thinking about where your buyer is along your journey and helps to inform the way that you structure your paid content. And then I'll turn it over to Casey to show some examples and kind of bring this all together.
Yep. So Aiden referenced this at the top of the deck, but organic is pretty much dead. So we're at a place with social media where if you really want to get your content in front of your target audience, there has to be a little bit of ad dollars just to break through those millions and millions of pieces of content Aiden showed you in that one infographic at the top. So let's go to the next slide and take a quick look to, we used real posts, real numbers, and we did a little test with Fast Forward. So this was a blog post that we published organically to our feed, and it's promoting that this is an affordable workforce training option. And in some cases, people can get this training for less than $100. So not, you know, thousands of dollars of student loan debt, something that is really in reach. So we posted this blog post, and we wanted to run a test of what it would do organically versus what it would do with a little bit of ad dollars. So as you can see, the left-hand column is what happened organically. So only one person clicked on it, and it was only served 74 times. So that's not 74 different users, that's just impressions, right? So someone might have seen it twice if they were really in our target's audience, or maybe even 3 times. So it was served 74 times. Once we added a little bit of ad dollars to the pot, we saw 141 clicks to the blog post and over 7,400 impressions. And we did all of this for a grand total of $33. So it's not like you have to have this huge budget. And this was, I actually think, part of a broader campaign. And this was just the sliver that that was allocated to this one particular ad. So you don't have to have a lot of money to make a difference in posting something versus posting something that people will actually see. So I think the next slide, I think we go back to our previous, to kind of close the loop on the example with the traditional advertising. We gave a similar presentation to the VCCS, the higher education audience that we've talked about throughout here. And a lot of them like to do billboards because it works for their community. So for the sake of this presentation, we did the pricing tool of what it would cost to have a billboard up on 64 between Richmond and Charlottesville. And I think it ended up being something like $4,000 or $5,000 for 2 months to have this billboard up. But if we took that same budget and applied it to our target audience and to our website and social media campaign, we get 1.6 million impressions, 68,000 clicks to our website. That would be measurable, actionable clicks to our website, not just hoping someone would then go back to their computer or their phone to look us up. This is something that happened all simultaneously, all within a very particular targeting and demographic that we wanted. So we couldn't just say we only want people driving Camrys to see our billboard on 64, but we were able to be really refined and strategic here. So this is just to show that
it's not just a million impressions, this is a million impressions based on the demographics that we want people to convert with.
Great. And so we just kind of wanted to finish up with just a little like takeaway tips and tricks slide. And a lot of this is kind of what we mentioned and talked about throughout the deck. Just the importance of that monitoring and testing piece. And just to talk about some of the metrics that we look for when we're kind of gauging whether an ad is performing well, whether it's something worth keeping on and letting it run, or whether it's worth tweaking or turning off. Obviously that cost, that's important. Looking at the click-through rate, looking at the frequency, how are people just getting oversaturated with your ad, and then looking at the relevance score, which is a score that Facebook gives it just to see, is what you're serving to your audience relevant to them. We'll just take a look at some of those metrics to determine whether, it's time to make some changes or turn things off. Again, I think Casey alluded to this earlier, just using your social data to inform some of those other efforts, with it being kind of a lower risk, lower cost, and higher ability to test and make these changes. It's worth kind of, putting your efforts into that, and then taking what you learned, if you know that this copy and these images and this kind of download works really, really well with your target audience, maybe that's something you put your efforts into when you're thinking about doing a print piece that you can't really change once it goes to print, or a billboard. Kind of use that that knowledge you get when it's a little bit more low risk and a little bit easier to test before you kind of make those bigger monetary commitments that are definitely important and work from an awareness level when the time's right. And then also we'll just echo the importance of, if you can, using that Facebook pixel, using that code. Even if you're not ready to go out with a campaign, go ahead and just drop that snippet of code on your website and start let Facebook kind of monitor and collect that data, so that once you are kind of ready to go forward, you won't have to, start from ground zero with them needing to collect all the information. And I swear this is the last example, but I'll just, this big spike in traffic, this is a screenshot from Google Analytics for a digital magazine that we ran and put together. And before we had the Facebook pixel installed on our website, our traffic was kind of dwindling around like 20,000 views a month of just strictly normal paid social and organic posting. But as soon as we got that Facebook pixel installed and had enough data from Facebook to then start creating our custom audiences, our traffic shot up to where, we were averaging 60,000 views a month. So that was just in using that custom audience. And then we actually took that custom audience and created a lookalike to, reach some new prospects. So that, just that little code in and of itself, where you're not really having to do anything. For us, it more than doubled our traffic. So that's always like an easy win. And then lastly, just considering everything that's going on, 2020 is thrown a lot at us, but just to be mindful of current events when it comes to your social strategy. I was chatting with Amanda and Casey, and I remember like on Blackout Tuesday when everyone was, posting information or just being silent on social media, or you saw a lot of the black squares. The one thing that I would see as I would scroll are sponsored posts, these like bright, colorful. And I was like, ugh, like some of these brands you don't think, because they're kind of these invisible posts that are getting fed to your audience that aren't directly tied to your page. So, you might feel like you've toned things down on social media, but it's again important to remember that those are still turned on. So just with everything going on, we felt like that was kind of an important point to bring up. But that brings us to the end. And I don't know, I haven't had the chat up in front of me, so don't know if people have questions, discussion, just, I know we're like up at 1 o'clock now too. So Amanda, I'll kind of let you take over.
Yeah, Aiden, Casey, thank you so much for sharing all of that. We do want to be mindful of time, so if you have to jump off, feel free to. If you do have a few more minutes to spare, please stay on. We'd love to get some feedback and insight from you. I know some of this information might be things that you might already know, and I hope for some of you it was information that you were able to take away. But I just wanted to open it up and see if anyone had any questions or any feedback, or maybe wanted to offer their insider perspective of how you run ads similarly or differently. So I will open the floor.
And Connie
Amanda,
off, and I
I'll stop
wanted
my
to
screen here too, so we can all
relate to her with the Facebook ad manager and how she was stuck and couldn't get the ownership transferred. And I was going to talk a little bit about best practices there, but I'll just put it out to the group. I think we've lost all of our agency connections here, but Christina, this could maybe come up for you one day. It's just, we always try to make sure our client is the one that establishes a business manager account, just so we don't have to worry about that transferring of ownership. And we just get added into as responsible parties for advertising. So that's just sort of the broad best practice there.
I do have a question in regards to boosted posts. So in the past, we kind of allocated a $50 budget for boosted posts for each month, just kind of taking posts that we organically created and put on our feed to boost, usually just to get some room bookings, especially if it's like a holiday or a special event happening in Richmond. We take those originally made posts and boost them. Do you recommend continuing to do that, or do you recommend actually going into Business Manager and creating an ad versus a boosted post? What do you think is the better option when we're trying to get people to book at the hotel?
That's a good question. And I think for us, when we see boosted posts being a good option, is maybe if you have a one-off event that's like really specifically tied to a date, that could be worth like putting a little bit of money behind your boosted post. But honestly, I feel like for you, taking that budget and creating a monthly campaign, and you can take some of those posts that are in your calendar that are allocated to get the money behind them on Boost, and like drop them all into the same. So say you have a campaign level and it's like for increasing your bookings, and then you have a bucket, your ad set bucket would be maybe like monthly. So, you know, your campaign level, you don't really need to tie a budget to that. And then say you have a $50 a month budget for your ad set on the ad set level, and then drop all of those organic posts. You can still post them organically to the page, but then also I just drop them into that ad set. So then you can kind of see what's working better and what's resonating. You can kind of learn from that. And like, if something's not working at all, you turn it off and just let the ones that are doing well spend that money.
Okay. And then for the organic posts that are doing really, really well, it's good to put money behind those so it reaches more people.
Or it's good to, if it's doing well organically, then pull that post into your ad set.
Okay.
On the like Business Manager back end, because it would probably,
I'm gonna have to shift around with the way that we're doing things, but yeah, that's great advice. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Anybody else?
I had a couple of discussion points, but I know we're over time. So I just wanted to thank you all for joining and for staying a few minutes later. I will definitely be reaching out to you later this afternoon with the contact list so that we can all stay connected. We're happy to share the deck, and I'm pretty sure AMA is recording this, so I'm happy to share that out as well, just so you have to reference back to. And please feel free to reach out to either Casey, Aiden, or I if you have questions, feedback, or anything else. So it was good to see you all.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys. Have a good one.